Tangled in Tuscany, Chapter 5, A Storm in a Fireplace. The following morning broke in shades of pewter. Clouds gathered low over the Tuscan hills, soft and sullen, and the warm hum of the previous day felt muted beneath the threat of a storm. Sophia stood by the window in the guest house, sipping hot espresso from a chipped blue cup, the aroma swirling around her like a small comfort. The vineyard was still for once, resting under the slow press of sky. She didn't mind. The stillness gave her time to sort through the hundreds of photos she'd taken the past 2 days. Workers, vines, even barrels in low light, and more than a few shots of Luca. Not posed, never posed. He wouldn't stand for it. But captured in motion, unaware of her lens, his features softened. There was something noble in his stillness. A quiet dignity. A kind of solitude not born of arrogance but of habit. She didn't want to admit how often her eye sought him, or how often her thoughts followed. By late morning, the sky began to spit fine, lazy rain. A knock sounded on her guesthouse door. She opened it to find Luca, holding a canvas bag in one hand and what looked suspiciously like a small umbrella in the other. "You still wanted to photograph the outer olive grove, right?" he asked, glancing up at the sky. "I was going to wait until the storm passed." He handed her the umbrella. "It's going to get worse later. You've got an hour if you want diffused light and no mudslide." She eyed him skeptically. "And you're volunteering to escort me?" "I need to check on the tools we left in the storage hut anyway." Sophia tilted her head. "Are you always this enthusiastic when offering help?" "No," he said flatly. "But I'm the only one with the gate key. So it's blackmail disguised as generosity." "Exactly." The olive grove lay at the western edge of the property, past a thicket of cypress trees and a sloping trail that wound toward a small stone shed. The old tool's hut. The rain misted around them as they walked. Umbrellas angled just enough to cover their shoulders. Their boots sank gently into damp earth, but the terrain held. The grove was quiet, hushed beneath silver-green branches that shimmered like watercolor under the clouds. Sophia stepped away to photograph tree trunks twisted with age and character, droplets clinging to olives like tiny beads. "You shoot like a painter," Luca said from nearby. Sophia lowered the lens. "What do you mean?" "You don't just capture what's there. You wait for what it wants to say." She blinked. "That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me." He smirked. "Don't get used to it." Thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Luca glanced toward the sky. "We've got about 20 minutes before it opens up." Sophia looked around. "I want a few more shots near the back. There's this one gnarled tree that looks like it's dancing. Just don't get struck by lightning." "That's a charming send-off." She walked off, camera raised, disappearing briefly between the trees. Luca shook his head and made his way to the tool shed. 15 minutes later, the rain turned harder. Not torrential, but steady, enough to blur the horizon and soak through hair and shirts. Sophia returned with her camera tucked in her jacket, boots muddy and curls damp with mist. "We should head back," she said. "Unless you want to turn this into a vineyard survival film." Luca pulled the shed door closed and locked it with a snap. Too late. A sharp gust of wind kicked up, sweeping down the hillside. Luca hesitated. Change of plan. What? "We'll wait it out in the workers' shelter down the slope. It's closer than the house." Sophia followed his line of sight to a squat, stone building tucked between 2 rows of trees. "Cozy," she muttered. "Dry," he corrected. The inside of the shelter was rustic, more barn than cabin, but functional. A small fireplace sat against one wall, a few metal stools stacked in the corner, and a rough bench stretched beneath the lone window. Dust coated everything, but it was dry, and mercifully quiet. Luca tossed his wet jacket onto a hook and crouched near the fireplace, stacking logs from a small pile in the corner. "You going to light that with your brooding personality alone?" Sophia asked, wringing rain from her hair. He glanced over his shoulder. "I could, but I brought matches." Disappointing. A soft whoosh followed, and the fire sputtered to life, casting flickering light across the stone walls. Sophia sank onto the bench, stretching her ankle out in front of her. Well, this wasn't on the itinerary. You mean almost getting stranded in a tool's hut during a thunderstorm wasn't part of the campaign brief? No, but it's a strong contender for most inconvenient bonding opportunity. He chuckled low in his throat, surprising them both. Sophia turned toward the fire, folding her arms. The silence that followed was different this time, warmer, less wary. I hated leaving New York, she said after a while, voice soft. It wasn't just the breakup. It was leaving everything I knew, every place I'd walked, every cafe I could order from without speaking. It was identity loss. Luca didn't respond at first. Then, so why did you come? She looked at him. Because staying meant turning into someone I didn't like. He nodded, watching the flames. We'll all run from something. And you? What are you running from? He didn't look at her. I'm not running. She waited. I'm standing still, he added, barely audible. That's worse sometimes. Sophia shifted closer to the fire. Yeah, she whispered. It is. Their shoulders nearly touched. The rain pattered against the roof like quiet applause. Outside, the grove swayed in the wind. Sophia dared a glance at Luca, his profile lit in flickering orange. His brow was softer, mouth unguarded. She resisted the pull to study him longer than she should. Instead, she broke the silence the only way she knew how. So if I die of pneumonia out here, will you carry my camera back for me? He turned to her with the faintest curve of a smile. Just the camera. She smiled. You're not exactly lightweight on charm, you know. Careful. That almost sounded like flirting. I'm only half flirting. The other half is cold and grumpy. Must be the company. They shared a smile that wasn't teasing this time. Just real. Just quietly true. And when the thunder rumbled again in the distance, neither of them moved. The storm eased just before dusk. Rain slowed to a whisper against the shelter roof, then faded altogether, leaving the scent of wet earth and olive bark hanging heavy in the air. Beyond the window, a faint golden haze cut through the clouds, painting the vineyard in bruised pink and pale lavender. Inside, the fire had shrunk to glowing embers. Sophia stood slowly, brushing soot from her jeans and stretching her stiff ankle with a wince. She could feel Luca watching her, though he said nothing. You think the path's dry enough to limp home? She asked, turning toward him. Luca stepped closer, his expression unreadable. We'll take the long route. Through the ridge road. Less incline. Fewer roots to trip over. Sophia tilted her head. Thought you liked watching me fall. I prefer watching you get back up. She blinked at him. It was too soft. Too sudden. Her instinct was to joke. But she didn't. Instead, she nodded once and followed him out into the evening. The walk back was slow and quiet. Sophia's ankle protested, but she refused to ask for help. Luca, to his credit, didn't offer again. He simply adjusted his pace to match hers, his presence steady just to her right. Close enough to reassure, far enough to respect. The air was cool, the rain washed hills glowing faintly beneath the early stars. Crickets had begun to chirp again. Nature unbothered by emotional weather. As they crested the final slope, before the house came into view, Sophia stopped and looked back at the grove behind them. That little storm shelter, she said softly, felt more real than most dates I've been on. Luca raised a brow. Is that a compliment or a criticism? I haven't decided yet. He cracked the faintest smile. Then, she added, more serious this time, thank you. For not letting me fall on my face. Again. He didn't say you're welcome, but he didn't need to. Back at the guest house, Sophia peeled off her damp layers and changed into something warmer. A loose sweater, leggings, thick socks that made her feel vaguely human again. She rubbed balm onto her ankle, now tinged purple and puffed at the edges, and carefully propped it up. She'd just settled into the couch with her laptop and a steaming mug of chamomile when a knock sounded at the door. Luca. He didn't wait to be invited in, just stepped inside with a brown paper bag in one hand, and something tucked under his arm. "Dinner," he said, "and these." He handed her the bag first. Warm flatbread wrapped around grilled eggplant, tomato, and mozzarella. Then set the second item on the small coffee table. A bottle of red wine. She blinked. "That's unexpectedly thoughtful. You skipped the staff dinner. I thought you'd be grateful." "I'm not." She raised an eyebrow. "You're annoying when you don't eat. You ask more questions." Sophia let out a surprised laugh, then opened the sandwich and took a bite. "This is incredible. Chiara made it. I don't know what's more surprising, that you brought it, or that you know who made it. I'm capable of gratitude. I just don't advertise it." She nodded toward the wine. "And this?" He hesitated. "One of the first blends I helped create after my father passed. 2019. Still rough around the edges." "Sounds familiar." He met her eyes, deadpan. "The wine has better structure." Sophia snorted, then gestured to the small armchair opposite the couch. "Sit, before you do something polite again and ruin your reputation completely." He sat, uncorked the wine, poured 2 glasses. They sipped in silence for a few minutes, watching the flicker of the candle she'd lit earlier, and the way the rain-dark world beyond the windows had given way to full night. Then Sophia asked quietly, "Do you miss him? Your father?" Luca stared into his glass. "Every day." She didn't push. After a long moment, he added, "We didn't always agree. Especially toward the end." He wanted to expand. "I wanted to maintain. He said I was too rigid. I said he was too idealistic. He was sick. We were both stubborn. Then, time ran out." Sophia's heart ached at the simplicity of that last line. How easy it was to speak of something unfixable in so few words. "My dad left when I was 12, she said quietly. Different kind of loss, but still a vacuum. The kind that doesn't echo until years later. Luca looked at her with something softer than sympathy. It was recognition. "You're different than I expected," he said. "Oh, you expected what? An entitled city girl with a trust fund and a lens." He shrugged. "Maybe. And now, you're still entitled." She threw a pillow at him. He caught it easily. "But," he added, placing the pillow beside him, "you're also real." Sophia froze. The way he said it, calm, without flourish, made her stomach flutter. "Real is better than charming," she teased gently. "Real stays longer," he said, meeting her gaze. Neither of them looked away. A silence stretched between them again, but this time, it didn't beg to be filled. It hummed, it held. Sophia swallowed the last of her wine and set the glass aside. "You should go," she said softly. Luca didn't move. Then, with a nod, he stood. At the door, he paused and looked back. "You looked like you belonged out there today." Sophia tilted her head, "In the olive grove. In the storm." And then, he left. Later, lying in bed, the scent of rain still lingering in the room, and her camera by her side, Sophia opened the photo she'd taken of the grove, just before the rain came. It was blurry, imperfect. The light was off. But she loved it anyway. It reminded her of today, of him, of the space between a beginning and a mistake. And maybe, just maybe, of something she didn't want to undo.